Welcome back. Welcome back. This is the People's Voice. I am Trey Evans, and I am the People's Voice. Thank you again for checking out the podcast this week. As always, it is greatly appreciated. As always, we thank everyone who has taken some time to listen to the podcast today. We do understand that you could be utilizing your time to do something else, so we do appreciate you sharing that wealth and resource with us. As always, if this information is valuable and you feel it to be enlightening, we do ask that you subscribe to the podcast. That way you'll be notified when each episode is released, and the support helps us and allows us to continue to bring you this information. You can listen to the podcast on all podcast platforms, and then we put out a video every Wednesday on YouTube if you'd like to watch the podcast. But as always, thank you and welcome to the People's Voice podcast. Today, I want to talk about the conditions in the subways of New York City. I saw a picture today. Somebody sent me a text in the chat of National Guardsmen in the subway in New York City, standing there with automatic rifles, guns, whatever. And I was confused because literally the picture was sent to me, no caption or anything. It just was like New York City. And so I'm like, well, what's going on? It was like, well, they have, National Guards people inside the subway. So anyway, I jump online. I said, I want to see what's going on. I wasn't sure if there was like an attack. There was like a bomb threat or something. And as I'm looking, I'm seeing all of these stories pop up that this apparently is a program that is being led by Kathy Hochul, who is the governor of New York State, and is being supported by the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams. So once I start to look into it a little bit more, I realized that this program that they've decided to institute in the subways of New York City is similar to the policies of previous administrations, but those, of course, were led by the New York Police Department personnel. But in regards to this current program, what they are trying to do is they want to stop individuals who are coming into the subway system and prevent them from crimes, basically, from performing crimes, because there has been data that has been reported that crimes in New York City crimes in New York City subway have increased almost 13% year to date compared to last year. And so a lot of these programs that are being instituted are apparently being instituted to address that. As I dug deeper, I saw this comment from the governor of New York, and it was what was I reading here? I was reading on Politico, and in that comment, she says, Democrats fight crime as well. So when I read that, I go, wait a second. So are we trying to fight crime, or are we trying to make a political statement? And then the light bulb went off, and I remembered that this is an election year, presidential election year. And many of these types of policies, the war on drugs, hard on crime, border control, these type of initiatives really ramp up during an election year. And these type of initiatives usually get stamped by a particular party. Now, this is not about politics, and those of you who have listened to this podcast know that Democrat, Republican, I really don't care. I'm more concerned about these type of programs being used to criminalize residents in these cities. Because historically, stop and frisk programs across the country, across all cities in New York, across cities across America, typically affect people of color. And people of color are usually the ones that are subjected to stop and frisk, specifically when you start talking about cities like New York, where, especially in the subways, where people of color have to utilize these modes of transportation more because many people of color are working in certain professions, specifically in the service industry, and their mode of transportation, because of the low pay that is received in those jobs, they utilize these methods of travel more than people of white people, just to be straightforward with it. So that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about this program in particular, but also the political stance that's being made by the governor of New York. And this is being supported by Mayor Eric Adams as well. And then I want to talk about some of the effects of stop and frisk programs that occur, specifically how this affects people of color. So let me play this because Kathy Hochul, the governor for New York, did an interview on MSNBC, and she talked about this. And I want to play a little bit of this and then talk about some of the pushback that she's been receiving, not only from residents, but also from New York Police Department. And I'll kind of explain that dynamic in a minute here. But let me play this and then play a portion of this interview, then we'll go from there.
Logically, do New Yorkers feel safe?
That is exactly what we're trying to fight here. I can show you all the statistics in the world that say you should feel safe because the numbers are better, but you're the mom on the subway with your baby in a stroller. You're the parent putting your kid on the subway to go to high school. You're that senior citizen going to a doctor appointment. If you're anxious that I'm the governor of the state of New York, I'm concerned about it. And if you feel better walking past someone in a uniform to make sure that someone doesn't bring a knife or a gun on the subway, then that's exactly why I did it. I want to change the psychology around crime in New York City because we are the safest big city in America.
Right.
I want people on the subways. It is safe, but I'm going to make sure people feel safe.
And I want to stop it right there because she talks about the psychology of making people feel safe, right? And I talked about this on a previous podcast when I was talking about metal detectors in schools. And a lot of this does not make people feel more safe. If anything, when you go into a subway and you see National Guardsmen standing with long rifles and automatic weaponry, that doesn't make me feel safe. It also raises my anxiety to say, what is going on? Because just like I explained, when I got that picture in that text, it was basically New York City, right? And I'm like, what's going on? So, this argument that this is about protecting people, I'm really looking at it with my third eye, and I'm like, no, it can't be just about protecting people, because New York City, New York Police Department had already deployed their people down into the subways. Now, here's the thing. the stats suggest, and I just saw this in an article from Forbes, the stats say that, and this is from New York Police Department data that they're quoting here in this Forbes article, it says that crime in the subway system has increased by 13%. It says as of March 3rd, compared to the same time last year, New York City crime in the transit system has increased by 13%. It said this year so far there's been 388 incidents. It says last year at this time there were 343. So, the data suggests that there has been additional crime. Now, making people feel safe, is that really the motive here? Because some of the pushback that the governor is receiving is not just from residents saying, this is not going to be fair. We're going to be, we're going to be criminalized. We're going to be harassed. New York Police Department also is pushing back on this. And I was reading a statement here from the Chief of Patrol, and I want to just read what he said. Chief of Patrol, this is John Chell, and he posted this on X. He says, our transit system is not a war zone. Bag checks have been around since 2005, but, with question marks. And for those of you who are listening, those of you who are watching, you can kind of see the article that I'm reading from Political. But as I said before, stop and frisk is not new to New York City or, to any big city in the United States. It has been in effect even longer than 2005. And again, it typically affects people of color. But here's the thing that I wanted to kind of highlight in terms of the pushback. And this is John Chell, who's part of he's New York Police Department Chief of Patrol. He says New Yorkers want truth and solutions. He said, let's talk crime. Transit crime is down 12% in the last 5 weeks because of the extra cops that have been deployed. So Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, is saying, well, no, we're doing this because crime is basically been going up, and New York Police Department data said that there's been an increase in incidents, about a 13% increase. But what's not being taken into effect is that since New York City Police Department have been deployed, there has been a decrease of 12%. So you're getting a lot of pushback from people in the police department, New York City Police Department, because number one, there has already been a program in place to try to lower crime inside of the subway. But secondly, it puts the New York City Police Department in a bad light, because in this new program that Kathy Hochul is leading, they are deploying 750 National Guardsmen into the subway systems of New York City. In addition, they're going to have 250 state police and then, 250 state and MTA police, Metropolitan Transit Authority police. So it's going to be 1,000 more, people policing and stopping and frisking New Yorkers who traditionally, again, these systems are abused by people of color, which is going to create another wave of bias stops of people of color in New York City. Matter of fact, she goes on. Matter of fact, let me read these before I play the rest of that interview that she conducted. So I'm looking at some of the stats for stop and frisk. And again, these are New York Police Department reports. And I'm reading this from the ACLU website for New York. It says in 2023, there were 16,971 stops recorded. Out of those 16,000 stops, 9,000 were Black or African Americans, however you want to describe that. 5,100 were Latino Hispanics, and then 942 were white. Now, here's the interesting thing about it. So out of 16,000 stops, basically 89% were people of color. Well, actually, if you want to also include Asian Pacific and Middle Eastern, it's basically more like 93, 94%. So well over 90% of those 16,000 stops involved people of color. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you start talking about the demographics of New York City, in New York City, right, when we just do a basic breakdown, and I'm getting this from the Census Bureau, from census.gov, and this is just New York City, the population in New York City by race, 37% of the population are white people. Black and African Americans are 23%. Latino and Hispanic are 29%. So 37% of the population are white people, yet in the stop and frisk data from 2023, it says that only 6% of white people were stopped during stop and frisk. And this is what the real concern for me is as the people's voice, because again, this is not just being done to create a safer environment, in my opinion. This is also about political posturing, and the people that are going to be most affected by this are the people of color in New York City. Matter of fact, the New York City public advocate, Jumaane Williams, he also put out a statement about this, where he basically is saying, the same thing. He says that, and I'll just, put it up here on the screen, and then I'll kind of close out from there. He says, militarizing the subway with National Guard and suggesting a wholesale ban on individuals from accessing public transportation are dangerous misuses of resources, which could be better spent addressing the issues at their root. And, one of those issues are the quality of the subway itself and the quality of, the travel on New York City. But in that statement where he says addressing the issues at their root, fighting crime does not just mean, flashing guns and having shows of force. You also have to deal with many of the social issues that are occurring, that are creating the crime, which, again, that money is never being spent in the abundance that is being spent to just have a show of force, which, as Jumaane Williams said in his statement, is not a sustainable solution, because basically what's going to happen is that these armed guardsmen and state police are going to show up. Once they get all of the cameras and everything needed, they're going to disappear, and you're still going to be stuck with the problems that have caused a spike in the crime rate as well. Right here from the FBI data, from the FBI website, I looked up, some of the causes of crime, basically. And on the FBI site, it says here, obviously, population density, could be compensation and composition of the population, but one of the main factors are economic conditions, including medium income, poverty level, and job availability. And as Jumaane Williams was saying in his statement, the root of the issue is not just, deploying stop and frisk. The root of the issue is, why is crime increasing, and attacking those issues are the way to have sustainable success in terms of fighting crime. But, I wanted to play one last piece from this interview from the governor of New York, and then I'm going to close out from here, because again, I don't feel that this is just about addressing the psychological fears. This is an election year, and you have these type of initiatives that are deployed for political posturing. And again, it is not addressing the needs or the actual issue regarding crime itself. But let me play this and then I'm going to close out.
Someone last year and got out. So, but people are saying I'm going to be harassing people and going to be stopping. That is not the objective at all. I'm here to protect people, particularly people in communities of color who are riding the subways in high proportion because they don't have the luxury of vehicles or getting to their low-wage jobs. I want them to be safe. That's why I'm doing this. So people criticize everything we do. Get in line. I say as the governor of New York, they're always saying something.
Now, you heard that, right? She's like, I'm doing this for the people. Now, listen to this last line here. Listen to this.
All I know is my job is to protect the people of this state, and I'll do it. And I'm also going to demonstrate that Democrats fight crime as well. So this narrative that Republicans have said and hijacked the story that we're soft on crime, that we defund the police. No, we care about civil liberties.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, is the reason that this is being done. This is all about political posturing. And, you know, unfortunately, like in many situations, when these type of initiatives and when these type of programs are rolled out, the people that are the victims in this are going to be the people themselves. Because as usual, politicians put politics before people.
And now they bring up you. You put them first and they put you last.
And I'm going to end there. So I hope this information was valuable. And as always, if you want to, please feel free to leave a comment. You can reach me on any of the social media platforms. You can reach us at the People's Voice Podcast on Instagram, or if you want, you can just Google Trey Evans and tap in with me on any of the social media platforms that we are on. But as always, dreams are not just for sleeping. Please wake up and live your dreams. My name is Trey Evans, the People's Voice. Tell somebody about the dream. Salute.
I am